All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. It is 12 o'clock, and we have a lot of content to cover today, so we want to be mindful of everyone's time and jump right in here. We do have some people that will be joining throughout the next couple of minutes, so hopefully you don't hear the doorbell too much on my end of things. But welcome. My name is Laura Weiss, and I am a program director here at the Maryland State Arts Council, and I am joined by my colleague and fellow program director, Emily Sollenberger. We both oversee the Creativity Grant as one of the programs that we manage. So we are here today to talk about how to apply for the FY22 Creativity Grants. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we jump in. We are expecting a pretty large crowd today, so just please mute your device until you are speaking so we don't hear any extraneous background noise or anything like that. Also, please do not present your screen. Emily is taking care of that today so we can see the presentation. Like I said, it might be helpful to have a notepad or something to jot down some notes during the meeting. Please note this is being recorded, so you can reference the video. We will have it posted to the website in a couple of days, but it might be helpful to take your own notes on some of the points. And also, we will hold the meeting to the established time today, so we will wrap up by 1 o'clock. We do understand that there's a lot of information and you might have some questions later, so there will be plenty of opportunity to reach out to us at a later point. This is just a reference shot. If you are not familiar with Google Meet, these are some of the buttons and things to know about. Some of the most important are there's a little microphone that is kind of to the left of center at the bottom. That is how you mute or unmute yourself. Emily is circling it with her mouse right now. To the right of that is a camera. That's how you turn on and off your camera. You can feel free to either let us see you or not, totally up to you. Next is how you turn captions on or off. So if you need that function, please feel free to turn that on. The next one is a little hand that looks something like this. That is the ability to raise your hand. We will have question and answer later, so that will be an important button to raise your hand if you have any questions at all. The next one is the screen share. It's a little box with an arrow in it. This is the one not to hit. Please do not hit that so we don't see your screen. And then there are 3 little dots which have other options and different things like that. If you need to change what your screen looks like, that's where you would go. And finally, the red button is how to leave the meeting. There is also one other important part to point out. That is the chat box, which Emily is circling with her mouse there. It's a little quotation box icon. You can feel free to put in questions, comments, anything like that into the chat box. We will be monitoring it. And just note that everyone can see your comments and questions. It's not private between us. I'm going to read the next few slides aloud. These are our grounding documents, which we begin all of our meetings with. And the first is our equity and justice statement. The arts celebrate our state's diversity, connect our shared humanity, and transform individuals and communities. The Maryland State Arts Council and its supporting collaborators are committed to advancing and modeling equity, diversity, accessibility, and inclusion in all aspects of our organizations and across communities of our state. MSAC and its grantees are committed to embracing equity and non-discrimination regardless of race, religious creed, color, age, gender expression, sexual orientation, class, language, and/or ability. The vision of the Maryland State Arts Council is to play an essential role ensuring every person has access to the transformative power of the arts. And we do that through our mission, which is to advance the arts in our state by providing leadership that champions creative expression, diverse programming, equitable access, lifelong learning, and the arts as a celebrated contributor to the quality of life for all of the people of Maryland. Our current strategic plan has 5 goals associated with it. Those goals include Goal 1, to increase participation, Goal 2, to provide intentional support, Goal 3, to build capacity, Goal 4, to leverage connections, and Goal 5, to bolster Maryland arts. And today we're really honing in on goal 2, which is to provide intentional support by walking through the application of the Creativity Grant. And finally, we begin all of our public meetings with what we call our creative meeting actions. So we invite you to embrace these ideas throughout today's presentation. And that is to celebrate being in the space with other creative people, engage with everyone's presence as a gift, acknowledge that together we know a lot, enter the conversation with curiosity and inquiry, share your idea and trust that it will be heard. Use I statements. Focus your language on the task at hand. Hold one another accountable with care. Apply yes and, I hear your idea and I'm going to add to it. And balance speaking and listening. And we do encourage avoiding the use of pronouns in public meetings. Please introduce yourself by name when speaking and refer to each other by name during the meeting. And at this time, we're not going to take time for introductions as we have a large group here, but if you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat and let us know your name, where you're located, the arts organization or discipline that you work in, you can feel free to do so in the chat. And just a few more informational slides, I promise, and then we'll get to the content. But the next one is just a call out for MSAC's professional development. This is a real commitment that we have to professional development and learning. From March of 2020, when we all went virtual, to this past June 2021, we have served almost 11,000 participants in close to 300 different virtual professional development offerings. Those offerings include things such as our Envision series, creative conversations, which are different discipline-specific gatherings to share ideas and talk with colleagues, various networking sessions. We had our Maryland Art Summit back in June, and just a call out for our upcoming regional art summits, which will take place, they're planned for in-person in different specific areas of the state throughout the fall in September and October. So there will be more information about that very soon coming out. And finally, this is just a call to let you know to join us as a panelist. This is a really great professional development learning opportunity to really kind of get into the grant making process and kind of see it from the other side of the table. We just actually sent out a call for our Grants for Organizations panelists this morning. If you're interested in serving for something like this, everyone is welcome to apply. We have extensive training and support provided by our staff. For Grants for Organizations, you would be working very closely with myself and with Emily. The role of the panelist includes reviewing and scoring of applications in connection to a rubric, similar to what you'll see today. You'll see the rubric for the Creativity Grant. And then often there is attendance at a public panel meeting as well. Also, there is compensation that is associated with serving as a panelist. So that might be something of interest. And we'll be sure. I don't know that the call is on the website quite yet, but if it is, we will share the link. And if you're interested, you can always feel free to reach out to myself or Emily. And finally, I think we just have here today's agenda. So we are going to be reviewing the Creativity Grant Program and its guidelines. We'll walk through the application and the scoring rubric. And then we'll talk a little bit about the application review process. And finally, we'll have a walkthrough of Smart Simple, which is our grants portal. And at the end, we will have plenty of time for questions and answers. All right, I am going to hand it over to you, Emily, to start talking about the Creativity Program.
Great, thanks, Laura, and good afternoon, everybody. So glad to be here and glad to see some familiar faces. I'm going to start to go through just a little bit more about the Creativity Grant itself. I see some familiar names here, so I know we've got some that have been funded here before, but this might be new information for a lot of you. So the Creativity Grant, the purpose of this particular program, which is now going into its third fiscal year, yes, I think, is to strengthen the vitality and sustainability of artists and small organizations to maintain a strong and stable arts infrastructure in the state of Maryland. So it provides opportunities to serve the growing needs of relevant arts projects and collaborations within Maryland communities. The great thing about the Creativity Grant is that the applications are accepted on a rolling basis, so you can apply whenever you feel ready, and applications are reviewed on a monthly basis, so it's a pretty quick turnaround for this program. Those that can apply are independent artists and small arts organizations or programs. So an independent artist would be an individual or a collaborative group who are not working or who are working independent of an organization. And an arts organization or program, this would be those organizations or programs with an allowable income of $50,000 or less, or somebody who is not currently being funded by our grants for organization or the GFO program. And there's full eligibility requirements in our guidelines, which are posted on our website. And some frequent questions that we get, are fiscal sponsors accepted? And the answer is yes. We are looking for a fiscal agency, if you need one, that would be a Model A sponsorship. So that means that that fiscal sponsor would have direct and active involvement or oversight within your organization. So again, this would be an organization that does not have their 501c3 status, but is using another organization or that fiscal sponsor to use their 501c3 instead. So typically this is not an independent artist. It is usually a smaller organization that does not have that status. And Laura and I can definitely go through more details around that. There are a couple different models, but we're specifically looking for Model A here. Other questions that we get, if they're an artist that does not live in Maryland, can you apply? And unfortunately, no, we're looking for independent artists that reside in Maryland. And again, there's some very specific details about residency in the state of Maryland within the eligibility guidelines on the website. And then another question we get a lot is, if I'm a student, can I apply? And unfortunately, no, students can apply, and applicants must be 18 years of age or older. So you can't be enrolled in high school, undergraduate, or graduate degree programs. And a lot of that is because you're getting, as a student, you're paying or getting support from a higher ed institution or college. And so that's the reasoning behind that. What artistic disciplines can be funded? Literally just about anything can be funded through the Creativity Grant in terms of disciplines. So here are the way we break them down is between dance, theater, music, literary arts, visual media arts, multidiscipline, folk and tradition, and public art. And if you're not really sure where to go or where you fit in here, you can always contact myself or Laura, and we can walk you through what the best fit for your program or your project might be. And then in terms of award amounts, the Creativity Grant is available between $1,000 and $3,500. Requests that are made of $2,000 or under are reviewed by the staff, and that's typically Laura or myself. And requests of $2,001 and up to $3,500 are reviewed by a panel that we hire each year, which is a multidiscipline panel. And I think we'll go into that a little bit more. And another question, just to connect to this as well, before I forget, a lot of times we get questions about whether you can get partial funding. And with the Creativity Grant, it's an all or nothing. So if you ask for $3,500, it's either you're going to get the $3,500 or zero, depending on the score in your rubric. And am I more likely to get funded if I ask for less money? And the same scoring rubric is applied to whether you're being reviewed by the staff or reviewed by the panel. It's the same exact rubric that we are all trained on and use throughout the entire process. Oh, and I answered my own question earlier. Can my application be partially funded? No, grants are made in the full amount that are requested. So that's that all or nothing. And then I think we're going to go into the creativity application with Laura a little bit further, but just a quick overview here. That applications, this is a very short application. It's only 3 narrative questions, which includes just a project overview, a timeline, and a budget. And organizations that apply are asked for a financial statement, which is just an addition if you are an organization and not an independent artist. And other attachments like resumes, reviews, letters of support, links to your work samples are not considered eligible for this particular grant. We're only looking at the 3 application questions, and that's what the panelists are trained to review, and they're not required to open up any additional links that you might provide or, again, any additional attachments. It's really the content that is included within the application itself. And all applications are completed in Smart Simple, which is our online grant platform, which we'll go into a little bit later. And I think I'm passing it off to Laura.
Great, thank you, Emily. Okay, so to walk through the actual application itself, oh, do you mind going back one slide there? Thank you. So there are 2 different what we call tracks for the creativity grant application. The first track is for general operating support. That is available only for arts organizations and arts programs. So this would be support for the overarching organization. You're not picking one specific activity or event or something like that. It's the general operations of the organization as a whole. The other track is the project-based support, which is also available for organizations or programs, but this would be the track that independent artists would want to select. So this is really looking at a very specific event, program, something like that. So it's just one thing, one project that you're looking at. The application is more or less the same for both of those, with just some minor tweaks between the 2, and same with the rubric. So we're going to walk through that now. The first question, and like Emily said, this is a very brief application, just 3 questions. The first question for the general operating version is, during this fiscal year, what arts activities / programming and geographic area will be supported by this funding? Address the community impact of the organization's arts activities / programming. And then the project-based version, which is very, very similar, is what arts activity / event / project and geographic area will be supported by this funding? Address the community impact of the arts activity, event, or project. For each question, there is a corresponding rubric, which breaks down exactly what the panelists are looking for within that question. So whenever I talk to applicants or somebody who's working on their application, I always advise to look to the rubric, because it really spells out exactly the points that the panelists are looking for within your response. This rubric can be found, it's in the guidelines, it's on the website, and actually within Smart Simple itself, within the application, you'll see what the excellent to outstanding response is for every single question. So it really guides you through the points that you want to make sure that you are addressing within your narrative. So for that first one, you can see it's a little small here, but you can see it more clearly on our website. You're looking for a clear, specific, and thorough explanation of the planned activities or programming, which includes clear and thorough evidence of community impact. And that includes engagement, intention, timeliness, and/or inspiration in relation to the defined community's needs. So if you hit all of those points, you would score an excellent to outstanding points for that, and that would be 34 to 36 total points. From there, it kind of scales down, and this will be true, you'll see in all of the rubrics, so that we're moving from excellent to outstanding, then to good to very good, satisfactory, marginal to fair, and then finally just no evidence. And I won't go through each and every point of that rubric, but you'll see that there's just kind of varying degrees. So it might not be quite as clear as what the excellent to outstanding response is. Maybe it's missing a point or two in that response. And again, you can find the full rubric on our website. The next question is looking at the timeline of either of your season, your fiscal year, or the activity, and that's the exact question here. Either describe the timeline of your organization's entire season or fiscal year, or for the project-based version, it is what is the timeline for the proposed arts activity. And very similarly here, you'll see there is a rubric attached to this, going from the top score, which would be 12 points in this case with the excellent to outstanding response, all the way down to no evidence, which would be 0 points. And that excellent to outstanding response includes clear, specific, and realistic timeline for the entirety of the season/fiscal year or the activity. And that includes specific timing as it relates to the expenditure of funds, planning, promotional efforts, implementation of events and activities, and evaluation. And again, it just scales down from there. And then the final question that we have is looking at the finances attached to either your general operating or the project itself. For the general operating version, that is what is the organization's overall budget for this fiscal year. Include a clear list of all projected income and expenses. And for the project-based application, that is what is the overall budget for the arts activity and how will the MSAC funding be used. Include a list of all projected expenses and sources of income beyond the MSAC request. And finally, then we have the rubric here, very similar to the others. This one is also worth a total of 12 points like the previous question. And that 12-point answer includes detailed financial information tied to the proposal and indicates realistic expenses for implementation of the proposed events/activities and any anticipated, or I can't read what that says, or contributed income or committed income is what it says. Thank you. And same thing as the previous two. That's your excellent to outstanding response. And then it just scales down from there to the no evidence, which is a 0-point response. Just to go through a couple of things here. Something that you may not know is that Emily and I are available to review your application before you submit. We can take a look at your responses and offer feedback and comments, and we are more than happy to do that. So if that's something that would be helpful for you, you can feel free to email us and request feedback on your draft. Typically, we do ask that you allow for up to about 10 business days to receive written feedback. I don't think we said this before, but just so you know where the breakdown is, Emily works primarily with the visual arts. She also has multidisciplinary arts, folk and traditional arts. Did I miss one, Emily? Is that it?
And service, if there are any service organizations. Or
That's it. Yes, and service. And I work primarily with the performing arts side of things. That's dance, theater, and music, and literary arts. So you can feel free to reach out to us at any time. We are happy to read through those drafts. And then we're available to either send back the feedback or we can find a time to meet and discuss based on your needs and our availability. And just another, just kind of saying it again, these applications are accepted on a rolling basis. So that means you can literally apply anytime you want. So whenever it works in your schedule, whenever your availability is, the only thing really is to make sure that it is prior to what you're writing about. So if you have an activity, you do need to submit it before that event occurs. Otherwise, it's accepted on a rolling basis. The way that the monthly review breaks down is that batches of applications are gathered from the 6th of the month to the 5th of the following month. So applications, for example, submitted between September 6th and October 5th will be gathered into a batch, which will be reviewed in the middle of October in this case, and then notifications would be sent out by the end of the month. And that just repeats month after month. So it's a pretty quick turnaround. If you miss one cutoff, it's not the end of the world. You just be put into the next batch. And the final point here, I think this is the final point, is that Another really great thing to know about that often people don't know about is that if your application is not funded, you can email us to request feedback. So we would then be able to gather comments and questions from the panelists that reviewed your application and share these with you. We'll give you a nice little form that will break down all of the points, all of the comments, any questions. And it's really a great way to improve or clarify for future applications. So it's a great little professional development opportunity. You are able to apply again. So if you're not funded, we highly recommend that you do this. Get some feedback, work with us through your application, and then you're able to submit it again. And hopefully, the outcome will be better the second time or third time around. But we're here to help you through that whole process. So feel free to reach out to get that feedback and to make some edits on any applications. All right, I'm going to hand it back over to Emily for this last section on Smart Simple.
Great, thanks, Laura. I know this is a lot of information that we're talking at you with right now, but I'm going to go through the Smart Simple section here. Will actually be pretty short, and then we'll get into some of the questions, which I already see are starting in the chat box. So the application that you'll complete for the creativity grant is in Smart Simple, which is our online grant platform. And if you're not in here already, you would just go to marylandarts.smartsimple.com. This is also accessible on our website. There's a direct link on our homepage that will take you to Smart Simple. And then on each application page, so if you click on the creativity grant, there will also be an apply now, I think it says, button on those application pages, which will also take you directly to Smart Simple. If you have not registered in our grant system yet, you'll see there's a blue register button here. You'll want to click that and complete a form, or you'll just use your login credentials here, which is typically your email and a password that you've determined. So if you do need to register, as if you're an artist that's applying or an individual, our individual account is called the independent artist. So you'll see that's the second one down here. You would click that, and then you'll be prompted to complete a form with all of your information. If you're a 501c3 arts organization, you'll fill out the 501c3 arts organization or arts program. Some questions that we get if you are from non-arts organizations that might have some arts programs. So even if you're not an arts organization, you'll still click that 501c3 arts organization or arts program and complete the form, which will include your federal ID information and address, just like the independent artist. Moving forward, after you are all signed up, you get your password, you log in, you'll have a dashboard that will come up for you. Within that dashboard, there's a section called My Applications, and on the very left side, there'll be funding opportunities. That's always going to be here. The number may change on and off, but that's just going to be the amount of opportunities that might be open to you. So once you click the funding opportunities from your dashboard, it'll come up with a list, and you'll want to click on the creativity grant and the Apply Now button. So we're skipping a couple of steps in here, but once you get to the application itself, it's going to come up into a form like this, where you'll see tabs for contact information, application details, et cetera, whatever's available for the creativity grant. Before you even get started, we recommend that you click the Save Draft button. That's going to get you to the full application itself, and then you'll always have that draft to come back to. So anytime that you start a draft application in Smart Simple, you can log back out and log back in. And from that point, there's an in progress header within Smart Simple dashboard. So you can always go back to your drafts instead of recreating a new application. So again, anything that has a blue button is typically an action item. So just pay attention to that and definitely save your work. Smart Simple does not save automatically as you enter information. So just be mindful to continue to update. And that's very, very short and sweet Smart Simple overview. If you need any technical support at any time, Laura and I are here to help through that piece. And we also have a fantastic grants team that also can assist with technical support too. but we are just at 12:30, which is great timing. So we have up to 30 minutes for any kind of questions that you all have. So I'm going to keep my screen up in case we need to reference any slides, but if anybody wants to use the raise hand feature, or we can start with some questions in the chat today.
Yeah, Emily, I wanted to bring up, there's a question here that I think might be helpful for lots of people to hear the answer to. So I'm going to read it out loud from Helen. It says, since community impact is paramount, please give examples of projects that were highly related for community impact. How big an audience is the threshold for impact? Would you like to talk about this first? Or you want me to jump in?
Go ahead.
Sure. So that's a great question. And I think looking at that second point about how big an audience is the threshold, there's not a number when it comes to impact. You'll see in the previous slides with the rubric that it doesn't talk about needing to hit a certain number of people in order to have what you might call, quote unquote, big impact. What I really often talk to people about as they work through their application is thinking about how is the topic or the themes explored in the work relevant to the defined community. So that's what we might call communal meaning. How is it important that, or why is it important that that audience is experiencing that particular activity or that particular artwork at this moment in time? Those are kind of the questions that I think about more when it comes to what we call impact. And it breaks that down within the rubric. It gives a couple different points that says something like timeliness, relevance, responding to a community's needs, things like that. So I tend to recommend thinking about questions like, what gap does the organization or does the arts activity fill within the community? What problem or issue might it be solving or addressing? Things like that are kind of where we're going when we're thinking about that impact. Anything you would add to that, Emily?
No, that's fantastic answer, Laura. Thank you. The only thing I would add is that, as an applicant, you define the community you're serving. So that's not for us. We talk a lot about geographic area of service and who's the community within that area that you're trying to reach. So again, it's not about numbers, it's more about the who and the why the project is happening, and who you define as your community. And that is completely different for everybody. So I think that's all I had to add to that. I see there's some other questions popping up as well. Can an individual promoter apply for the creativity grant if they host a concert series, or would it have to be with a nonprofit organization? That's a good question too, Jay. I would say it could go either way. If you are organizing as an individual, you can apply as an independent artist. I would recommend, if you're working with an organization or other partners in the community, to really outline those partnerships and how you all are working together. The one thing is more on the, if you're funded side of things, that if you're an individual applying, the funding would go directly to you as an individual. But if you're applying through a nonprofit, the funding, if awarded, would go to that nonprofit organization. So there are some tax differentiations there when it comes to funding, but otherwise I think it could go either way. And we can talk further about that too, one-on-one anytime.
And it looks like there's another question here from Pamela. Are we allowed to include a stipend, AKA compensation, in the budget for the activity? Absolutely. We want to pay artists and have you receive stipends or compensation for that. So yes, please, that is definitely an allowable expense. Please include that information in your budget and financials so that we can see it in the application.
Yeah, that's great. There was also another, I want to back up. In kind, oh, you referenced this, Laura. In kind is considered non-allowable income. Just that you should, if you do have income, whether it's cash or in-kind donations or services, you can definitely include that within your budgets as well. Any other questions? Looks like Linda asked a question, can the nonprofit receive a planning or implementation grant and still apply for the creativity grant? I think you might be referencing the public art planning or implementation grant. It depends on the expenses, Linda. If it's a large project that you're looking at those two grant opportunities to cover, it might be a maybe. We can probably talk about that one-on-one. If they're two separate projects, then yes, you could apply for a creativity grant for one project, and then the public art for the other project.
Looks like we have a couple of other questions that have come in. Let's see. Jacqueline says that they are a musician and have been live streaming a lot during the pandemic. If I'm live streaming from my home in Maryland, but reaching a national or global audience, would that still count as a Maryland performance? Yeah, live streaming is a whole new world that we have, encountered, and a lot of artists are doing now since the pandemic. If you are a Maryland resident and performing it from a Maryland residence or location, then yes, that would be an eligible activity for the creativity grant. Hopefully you are reaching Maryland residents as well, but it's great if you're able to also reach a national or international audience. And then a follow-up question to that is also, it is my understanding that equipment for live streaming would not be an allowable expense. Is that correct? Typically, yes, I would say that is correct. That would probably most likely fall into capital expenses. Generally speaking, we could talk about that on a one-on-one basis if there were any things that could be considered allowable within the context of a project-based application. But often those kind of equipment needs fall into capital expenses, which are not allowable. Go ahead, Emily.
You can say there looks like a couple more. Rachel asked, can grant money be used to pay for studio rental when working on a specific project? And that is allowable. Any kind of rental fees, whether it's for the pre-work of a project, or even if you're renting gallery space or performance space, anything like that is definitely allowable. And Jill then asks, can project or general operating support include arts education activities? Absolutely, Jill. You can definitely apply for arts education. I would also recommend taking a look at the arts and education funding opportunities outside of the creativity grant. That might be helpful for you all as well.
Jill, I might also just add that, yes, absolutely, like Emily said, arts education activities absolutely can be included in these applications, but they do need to be outside of school time. So if it's something that is, specific for a class in an elementary school during a given period in the school day, that would unfortunately not be eligible. But if it is outside of school time and is open and available to the public, it would be allowable here. And we're happy to talk through specific scenarios with you about that.
Perfect. Thanks, Laura. Jackson asked, would we be able to give an example of a creativity grant approved for an independent visual artist? Oh, that's a good question, Jackson. I don't know that I have one off the top of my head, but note that we do post all the grantees that have been awarded. So you can look at all the past FY21 grants on our website. I believe they're all posted. Additionally, with the creativity grant, We do make posts on our social media platforms, so you'll find on Instagram and sometimes on Facebook, every time somebody's awarded, we do a little feature on them. So there's definitely some access to that, but we can talk one-on-one too about your project if and how that connects to the rubric anytime. I think I just answered Vivian's question too about the funded applications. Now they're rolling in.
Let's see, I'm just trying to find where we left off here in our list of questions. Patrick Alexander asks, can multiple artists collaborating on a single project apply separately for creativity grants? That's a great question, Patrick. So so a project can only be funded once. So that generally means one application per project, per event, things like that. Sometimes, you know, a project or an event has multiple phases through it. You know, it might span many years of planning and different steps of implementation. It could be possible for different applications to fund different phases, but they would have to be completely separate expenses. I don't know if we actually have ever had an example of that, Emily. I'm trying to think if there's been any that have had that kind of multi-phase approach. None are coming to the top of mind for me.
We've definitely had applicants that have applied separately, but maybe not all of them have been funded or phases have been funded, but we can certainly talk. That might be a one-on-one conversation because I think there have been, it's a little bit of a gray area.
Yeah. Yeah, but definitely any expenses would have to be very clearly different in applications. But Patrick, you can feel free to reach out and we can talk about what that looks like.
Yeah. Jill asked, what about paying a videographer? Absolutely. You can, you know, anybody that is assisting you or you're hiring to assist with your project, whether that's a videographer, photographer, somebody who's editing work, you can definitely put in whatever, if it's an hourly rate or a stipend. Also, if you're an independent artist who's coordinating your own project, excuse me, own project or working with somebody, to put in your own artist stipend is also allowable along there too. And Jill also asked about the use of purchasing tools and materials, even if the tool be used for future projects. Again, if that might be a one-on-one conversation, Jill, if it gets into the realm of capital. So definitely materials and supplies and some tools are eligible for creativity grant purchases. We just kind of have to we might have to have a conversation if it's a larger equipment type of purchase that gets a little bit too close to capital, which is not eligible.
Let's see, it looks like we have a question from Aubrey. If you are awarded a grant, can you apply again at a future month/year for a different project? You are eligible to receive one creativity grant per fiscal year. So you can absolutely apply if you are awarded one in FY22, which is right now through June 30th, 2022. You can absolutely apply again in FY23. So that would be after July 1st of next year. So only one grant per fiscal year. And it looks like sort of a similar question here. If we, Debbie asked, if we have a concert in December and another in June per year, can we apply separately for each one or as 2 concerts per year? It's sort of a similar situation, Debbie. I mean, if it's an organization, then I would recommend applying for general operating support. So that way it would encompass the entirety of the season and would include all of your various concerts for that whole year. If you are not a nonprofit organization and it is, you know, some individual independent artists putting on the concerts, then it probably would make sense to apply to do one application, including both concerts, and talking about the different concerts for the years, you would only be eligible for the one since they're both occurring in the same fiscal year. So only one application can be funded. But we could talk about different ways that you could make that work. But my recommendation would probably be put both concerts into one application.
It looks like Robin asked, is it more advantageous to apply earlier in the fiscal year? In other words, does funding ever run out before the year ends? That's also a wonderful question, Robin. And this is kind of a two answers to this. A lot of times we do recommend that you apply early if you know when your activities are going to take place, or if you're requesting general operating support as an organization. The earlier that you apply, the more, I guess, opportunities, if you're not funded, the more opportunities you have for that feedback from panelists and to reapply again. So you'll have a little bit of a larger window of time to get funding before your activities start. Additionally, our funding, if you are awarded, it takes a little bit of time. We are a state agency, so the checks do not come directly out of the State Arts Council's offices. They come out of Annapolis, and typically it takes about 6 to 8 weeks. So a lot of times we recommend at least a 90-day window if you can. It's not required, but it's a good window of time to get your application in and allow for the check to arrive. Additionally, in other words, funding, we do have a budget, but we don't use all the funds up, earlier in the year. Everything's equally divided. So the same amount of funding will be given out in March as it will be in October. So it generally is the same amount of money each month.
It looks like Tulu has a question here about, can we apply for a grant for music album creation? That's a great question. And yes, we actually get quite a few applications that are focused on albums and sometimes music videos that accompany them. Absolutely eligible. The thing that I'll just say, as a bit of advice in terms of albums and music videos, is really finding that connection to community. So how is that? How are you relating to the community? How is the album responding to community needs? That kind of thing, like we were talking about earlier. So just really thinking about that community relevance and community engagement aspect of it. That would be my recommendation.
Great. It also looks like Doris asked a question, what follow-up reporting is required after an award? That's great, Doris. We require a final report if you are awarded funding, which is due, I think this year we moved it to August 15th in alignment with a lot of our other grants. So after the fiscal year is complete, so it'd be August 15th of 2022, and you would get a reminder emails from directly from the system, but the final report is in Smart Simple. So when awarded, you would immediately, and after signing your grant agreement and getting your award, you'll have access to that final report. It includes NEA data collection, which is part of all of our final reports that for all of our individuals and organizations that receive funding. It also includes some anecdotal information, but no tracking of receipts, no financial report or anything like that for the creativity grant. It's a pretty short and sweet report. Just making sure everything is good with you all and there weren't any major changes, and just want to know how the funds were used.
I think we've run out of questions in our chat. Are there any other questions that we can help address before we wrap up? I think we've answered everything. Yes, and as Emily just said, please feel free to email us at any time. Our emails are in the chat there. They're also on the screen. We hope more than anything that you took away from this presentation is that we are here to help you. Please ask us questions. We are here to give feedback, to read through drafts, anything at all. We are here to help you with that process. Anything else, Emily, that you would add?
No, just echoing that. We love hearing about what's going on across the state. So it's really exciting to talk to you all, and we love hearing from you. So whether it's through an email or setting up a phone conversation or video chat, we're open to helping you.
Yes, absolutely. We love this program. It's just so much fun to see what's going on across the state. So thank you so much for your applications in advance. We will be posting this recording onto the website shortly, so it will be available if you need to reference it or need to send a link to somebody else in your organization or anything like that. But thank you all so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing your applications. Thank you all.
Have a good day.